That's the thing that always interested. I think everybody, myself, I liken it like to I don't know how much you listen to rap, right? Or just music in general, right? I would argue that you had one of the most successful brandings of all time, like how you branded yourself, right? Because that's like a lot of music I feel like is like that. You fall in love with the art and the artist, but you also fall in love with the branding behind that art and that artist, and they kind of become a character or even a caricature of themselves. So how did you craft Stone Cold? Like how did that come about? Like I guess like the elevator pitch of how did you craft like one of the most successful branding, jobs of all time?
It was a work in progress, and it certainly wasn't overnight. When I started in Dallas, went to Tennessee, I started as Steve Williams. They changed my name to Steve Austin in Tennessee, and then they changed it to Stunning Steve. I'm over in Japan one night, and I jump off the top rope and I tear my tricep off my arm. So I wrestled 2.5 weeks of torn tricep, go back, get it reattached, get back in the ring after a few months of healing, and then I get fired. And so I go to a place in Philadelphia called ECW. And at that time, I'd have 7 years in the business, but I was known as what's called a mechanic, Arian. And a mechanic is a guy I was respected by my peers because I could work. I could have a good match with anybody, but I wasn't a defined persona or gimmick or character. Stunning Steve Austin. It didn't mean anything. I wasn't stunning. Hell, my hair was starting to leave. I was like a ragamuffin. I wasn't the total package. When I went to WWE, they wanted to call me the ringmaster, the master of the ring. And they had this guy talk for me because they didn't think I could cut a promo. And then 6 months of that, it was going nowhere. And then so I was at the house and I was sitting there watching TV. It was late at night. And a special on a serial killer named Richard Kuklinski came on. The Iceman used to be a hitman for the mob.
It's a great doc.
And that guy was a cold blooded dude. And I said, man, this is something I can identify with. Now, and when I say this, I'm not giving credit or admiring anything that the guy did. He gave me an idea in a world of good guys and bad guys or whatever. I said, hey, man, that guy, he doesn't give a damn. He's remorseless and he's a killer. Well, that explains. I was a running back, Arian. I wasn't in your league, but I was a running back in high school and I played linebacker and I had a killer instinct. If I was going to hit you, I was going to hit you as hard as I could. If I had the football, I wasn't fast enough to run east to west, so I ran north and south. So I finally took, that mindset, and with what Richard Kuklinski, the Iceman, had done, and I pitched this idea to the office, and they came up with a bunch of temperature-based names. I'm like, man, it ain't about a temperature; it's about an attitude. Anyway, my wife came up with the Stone Cold name over a glass of tea, and she goes, "That's your name, Stone Cold Steve Austin." And so I pitched this idea to the office. And at the time, I still had a buzz haircut from watching Pulp Fiction when Bruce Willis had that buzz haircut. And then I didn't have the look yet. And I still had, missed, my gear wasn't right. And we were working in Pittsburgh one night. And I said, dude, I looked at myself in the mirror. I said, well, nobody can identify with this. What are you doing? You look like crap. So I shaved my head. I didn't have the goatee yet. So I started growing in the goatee. And then when they started putting the microphone in front of my face because they got rid of my manager, Ted DiBiase, all due respect, a great talent, they let me start talking. And I was so pissed off at the time for all the bureaucratic BS and red tapes and people not thinking I could ever be a star. I just started cutting promos and talking all the trash that I grew up in South Texas here. And all of a sudden, people took notice, and Stone Cold Steve Austin as an entity started gaining momentum. Now, I was a bad guy, and I was beating the trash out of people, and just talking trash while I was doing it. And there came a point where I became so cool because I was talking so much shit that people started liking me. So they put me in a match against Bret the Hitman Hart, one of my favorites of all time, where Arian, I went into that match as a bad guy. Bret went in as a good guy. By the time the match was over, I was the good guy and Bret was the bad guy. And then it just took off because I didn't really change what I was doing. I just kept talking shit and, started flipping people off. And no one had been really using the middle finger on television because it wasn't the friendly thing to do. And at the time, my good friend Diamond Dallas Page was holding up a diamond cutter sign, and everybody threw up that diamond cutter sign. I remember being at television. I was fixing to go out live on TV on Monday Night Raw, and Vince McMahon comes up to me and he goes, "Steve, I see that you always, using the middle finger. It's not that great." He goes, "Is there something that you can do that everybody can do with you?" And I looked him dead in the eye, and I didn't hesitate, and I just said, "No." And I kept flipping people off, and we rode those middle fingers to sellouts all across the nation and wherever we went. So, but it was a grassroots effort, Arian, to take me. I'm a good mechanic, decent athlete, not the most graceful athlete, and I was more of a wrestler, trying to model my career after Ric Flair, the greatest of all time, in my opinion, as more of a wrestler. When I got pile drived in 1997, I was a transit quadriplegic for about a minute. When I came back from that injury, I knew I had to change my style. Ultimately, I had a 3-4 fusion, had to turn into a brawler. When I turned into a brawler, along with the attitude and along with the 7.5, 8 years of learning that I had, everything came together. And with the power of the WWF strapping a rocket on my back, that's when I caught traction and just shot to the next stratosphere.